Hi everybody, and welcome to Guitar Excellence. In today's lesson we'll be looking at some more time signatures. In previous lessons we have looked at the 4/4 time signature, and today's lesson will get a little bit more complex and look at 3/4, 6/8 and 6/4. Now if you remember, the first thing we learned, looking at a time signature as a fraction, where the top number represents the amount of notes per bar and the bottom number represents the value of note per bar. So 3/4 is then telling us that we have 3 quarter notes per bar. 6/8 is then 6 eighth notes per bar, and 6/4 is 6 quarter notes per bar. Now one thing you might have noticed is that 3/4 and 6/8 are kind of similar in the fact that if you double 3/4 we get 6/8. Now there's a reason why that's theoretically not correct, and we'll have a look at some examples and explain exactly why. Alright, here we have 3 examples of the 3 time signatures we'll be looking at, and one of the first things to notice is that we have these very faint lines here that we've used to split up the bars. Now these are called invisible bar lines, and they're very important in terms of how we group the notes depending on the time signature using note groupings. Now looking at 3/4, 3/4's note groupings are split up into 3 groups of 2 eighth notes per group. So here I've got 1, 2, 3 groups. Each group has a quarter note in it, which is the same value as 2 eighth notes. So there's 1 second quarter note, third quarter note. The second bar, it's more easily seen, where I've just got 2 eighth notes in the first section, 2 in the second, and 2 in the third section. Now looking at 6/8, this is where we see the difference, because 6/8 is split up into 2 groups of 3 eighth notes per group. Now an invisible bar line does allow for us to cut a tied note. However, if we try to do that in 3/4 using 2 groups of 3 eighth notes, we would have to put the bar line directly down a note, which is an indicator that it can't be 3/4. So the first group, I've got 2 eighth notes inside this quarter note, and there's my third, so that's my first group of 3 eighth notes, and it's just mirrored here, so there's my second group. And again in the second bar, 1 group of 3 eighth notes, 2 groups of 3 eighth notes. Now looking at 6/6, excuse me, looking at 6/4, it's split into 2 groups of 6 eighth notes per bar. Alright, so here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 eighth notes, which is the same value as a half note, and then a quarter note, which is 2 eighth notes, and that's mirrored here. So there's 1 group of 6 eighth notes, here's the second group of 6 eighth notes. Here I've got 2 groups of 3 quarter notes, which again, each quarter note being 2 eighth notes. So 2, 4, 6 eighth notes, invisible bar line, 2, 4, 6 eighth notes. And then the last bar, I've literally just got 6 eighth notes in 2 sections. Alright, let's have a look at some examples. Alright, here I have 5 examples of different time signatures, and we're going to work through it and see if we can figure out, based on our note groupings, what time signature each example is. So looking at number 1, first thing to point out is, alright, let's count our notes. So I've got 2 eighth notes, 3, 4, 5, I've got 6 eighth notes. Right, so straight away you would assume, alright, it's in 6/8, but let's try that. If we remember, 6/8 is split into 2 groups of 3 eighth notes per group. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, but that's a quarter note, which means I could not put an invisible bar line down the center of a note. So we can scrap 6/8. Let's look at 3/4. 3/4 was split into 3 groups of 2/8 notes. So here I've got 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So this here I can see is 3, 4 because I can put an invisible bar line after the first 2/8 notes, an invisible bar line after the quarter note, which is also 2/8 notes, and 2/8 notes in my third section. And we can try that again here on the second bar. 1, 2, invisible bar line. 1, 2, invisible bar line. 1, 2. So example number 1 is definitely in 3, 4. Example number 2. Again, let's start off by counting our 8th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's quite a lot there. Alright, so again, I see a lot of 8th notes, so let's try 6, 8. Now remember, 6, 8 is split into 2 groups of 3 8th notes. So let's see if that works. 1, 2, 3, invisible bar line. 1, 2, 3. And we still got a whole bunch of notes left over, which means it cannot be in 6, 8. Let's try 6, 4. Now 6, 4 is split into 2 groups of 6 8th notes. So right away it kind of looks like it's going to fit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 8th notes, invisible bar line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there I can split that bar nicely in half, telling me that this example is in 6, 4. Let's look at example number 3. Alright, straight off the bat it's rather obvious because I've got 1, 2, 3 quarter notes, which straight away tells me that it's 3, 4. But let's check that. 3, 4 was 3 groups of 2 8th notes. So there's 1 group, 2, and 3. Second bar, I've got 2 8th notes in group 1, 2 8th notes in group 2, and a quarter note, which is another 2 8th notes in group 3. Alright, example number 4. Now again, straight off the bat you can kind of see how this bar can almost be divided there. Now if we had to divide the bar there, that gives us 2 groups of 3 8th notes, which gives us 6, 8, because 6, 8 was split into 2 groups of 3 8th notes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's check that on the second bar. I've got 2 8th notes inside this quarter note, and there's my third. Split the bar, followed by another 3 8th notes. So example number 4 is in 6, 8. Now let's look at example number 5. I've got a quarter note, which is 2 8th notes. There's a third 8th note, 4th, 5, and 6. So I've got 6 8th notes. So let's try 6, 8. 6, 8 is in 2 groups of 3 quarter notes per group. So here's 1, 2, 3, invisible bar line, 4, 5, and 6. And again, we can clearly see that in bar number 2, where I've got 1, 2, 3 8th notes, invisible bar line, 1, 2, 3 8th notes. Alright, and that's it. Thanks for watching, guys. And don't forget to click the accompanying link for the notes and tabs we provided. And until next time, play hard.